First, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to come and speak on behalf of Mr. Charlie McVean. Mr. McVean began the Peer Power program in 2004, and his vision was to create a collaboration between high-performing college students and high school students who may need some tutoring. I was introduced to this opportunity by one of my professors as a chance for me to be able to get more, for me to be able to ease the financial burden of my college expenses. In the end, what I received was much greater value than money. Through Peer Power, I was able to gain confidence in my leadership abilities and my skills and and realize that I do have an influence on other people. I have also gained valuable skills that have helped me in my career as a bookkeeper, such as communication skills and networking skills. I would like to personally thank Mr. McVean for his efforts and generosity and let him know that your efforts have brought a value to me and other people and help people to become much better scholars. So thank you very much. And now I'd like to introduce Mr. Charlie Morris.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Charles Morris, and I'm a Peer Power tutor. I began Peer Power as a student, though. I was a tax student, and I wouldn't have made it through tax if it wasn't for that gentleman over there you're about to hear from next, Mr. Robert Palmer. I was very intimidated at the time. It was unlike anything I had ever done before, and to give you some background, when I say there was reason to be intimidated, there was. I have a military background. I've thrown live grenades. I've rappelled off 100-foot towers and been woken up at 1:30 in the morning by a gentleman much larger than myself. But even with all that experience, I was still scared. Well, I made it through. Not only did I make it through, I made an A, and now I tutor that course myself. I wouldn't have accomplished that without Rob. And Rob wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for Peer Power. And Peer Power wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for Mr. McVean. I'm one of those success stories, but there are hundreds of others who will never get a chance to meet you. So on behalf of all of those people, I just want to say, thank you, Mr. McVean. Up next, the gentleman who helped put me where I am today, Mr. Robert Palmer.
I read a book over the summer by Kurt Vonnegut. It's called God Bless You, Mr. Rosewater. It's about a millionaire who tries to make a difference in his community. Sound familiar? Unfortunately for Mr. Rosewater, he didn't possess the business acumen or the vision that you possess, Mr. McVean. You see, Peer Power has given me an incredible sense of self-worth. It's allowed me to build a brand that's so pervasive that my anthropology major sister heard some people randomly talking about tax coach Rob and how much he helped them one day. It also opened my eyes to a profession which I guess I'm sort of out of the norm here, that I had never considered before, and one that's my main goal in life now, which is to be a college professor. Peer Power doesn't just help me, though. It also helps the students. You see, it gives the students access to someone who is much closer to them in terms of academic maturity. Someone who can break down these complex topics into the basics. It puts smart, hard-working students in a position to pass on what we've learned, and it helps us solidify the knowledge that we've worked so hard to gain. You know, a lot of Peer Power graduates leave this university and become a part of the Memphis business community, just like Brandy. This program builds students at every level. It teaches the coaches how to be leaders, and it teaches the proteges how to ask help from their colleagues. Mr. McVean, thank you. I've thrived. the students have thrived, and the business community and the community as a whole have thrived. The program that you've put in place has created a feed-forward loop that's going to benefit Memphis for years to come. So from me, from the students, from the community, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. God bless you, Mr. McVean.
Wow, this is going to be tough.
Boy, thank you very much, Doc.
Thank you.
I'm very, very honored.
Let's give him a round of applause.
Very quickly, I'd just like to say that I think Dean Grover is a wonderful fellow, and I'm proud to be associated with this deal. And go Tigers. I need to say, may I say one more time? I just want to, I'm very proud of Peer Power. I'm proud of our deep and growing relationship with the University of Memphis. But I just pay the bills. Bill Singer's the guy back here to make that happen. Thank you.
All right, Charlie. Cut the cake.
Good.
Last time I did this, I lost all this fellowship. Where's Wesley?
There you go.
And afterwards, y'all are all welcome to come grab a piece of cake as well if
There
you're
we go.
hungry.
That's perfect.
That's
I
perfect.
think Charlie can.
Thank you, Austin, and good afternoon to all of you, to our president and other officials of the university. It's great to be on your campus. To the honorees, it's great to be in your presence. Brett, fellow Middle Tennessean, I'm from Lebanon. Good stuff comes out of Middle Tennessee. And the other recipients, just thanks so much for coming back and sharing with us on this great day. It is indeed a pleasure. And by the way, as fellow lawyers, we have to look out for each other. Our guest speaker here, we got started telling war stories there. I don't know what your speech is going to go about. Just come up here and tell a bunch of the war stories, and you'll keep this audience alert. But it's great to have you back here in Memphis, Tennessee. It is indeed a pleasure for me to introduce the next recipient. And I say that not because that's what you're supposed to say, but because, as Austin indicated, we've had some really great experiences that have worked to the betterment of our great city, our great region. And I say, when it comes to one of his loves, Peer Power, this nation, what he's doing will have drastic positive impact, not merely on this city and county, but on this nation, simply because it's going to be replicated, already is, elsewhere. This man is someone who's much larger than any words on print could amply describe. But let me just start with the basics here. Charles McVean is the founder, chairman, and CEO of McVean Trading and Investments, LLC. The MTI group of entities manages primarily agricultural futures trading for over 4,000 investors globally. The firm also conducts extensive macroeconomic research. McVean personally is a widely recognized beef cattle trader. And that was really dear to me. I still have a picture in my office, Charlie, of my first Hereford. But I have to tell this. I haven't told you this, Charlie. You need to know this. We wanted to get into cattle, but Daddy couldn't afford it. But there were the Herschel-Liggin farms in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. Every once in a while, would have a cow that should have calves and wouldn't take both of them. So they'd call my daddy, and we'd get it and raise that calf up with balled milk. I went to school every day smelling like whey. Kids would laugh at me, so that's one thing we have in common, Charlie. We're both in the cattle business. You're on a much larger scale than I was, though. Brett, we needed you back then. I could have done something other than getting into law school. Charlie McVean graduated cum laude from Vanderbilt University. He is a member of the Memphis Society of Entrepreneurs and of the Board of Visitors of the University of Texas. the MD Anderson Cancer Center, which is another love. Get him to talk to you about the great things he's doing with the MD Anderson Cancer Center. Mr. McVean was also named Humanitarian of the Year in 2007 by the Memphis City Council. Charlie's Pure Power Foundation, which, as I indicated earlier, is his greatest love, other than family, of course, which has tutored over 10,000 Memphis City School students in the past decade, has now entered into a new and potentially revolutionary, I won't say potentially, I'll say it is revolutionary, partnership with the University of Memphis and the Shelby County school systems. Listen to this. In a pilot program, roughly 200 outstanding University of Memphis students are tutoring over 2,000 man-hours per week in 2 socioeconomically challenged inner-city high schools, Whitehaven and East, as well as the university. This unprecedented Memphis model, and that's in capital letters, is expected to grow exponentially in the years immediately ahead. It'll grow to a scale with the power to change the entire culture of many urban schools. I'm a personal witness to that. I had about 60 mayors in our city a couple of years ago from a group we had founded, the Mississippi River Cities and Towns Initiative. And Charlie brought the program in and immediately sold it to them. I think Natchez picked up on it first, and it's going to many other areas. He then took it to Washington, D.C., and the same attraction was shown there. So as I said a few minutes ago, this is not merely something for Memphis. This is something for our nation. Mr. McVean is also founder and chairman of the Big River Strategic Initiative, which with the help of many others has created the Big River Crossing, which goes over Harahan Bridge, and the Big River Parkway, the Mississippi River Levee Trails and Parks. Opening in part in the summer of 2016, both the active rail pedestrian bike bridge over the mighty Mississippi River and the trail running atop the river's extensive levee system will be the longest of their type in the world and are expected to become a significant amenity and major tourist attraction for our region. This group is also leading in the development of the soon-to-be 1,700-acre Delta Regional River Park on the west bank of the Mississippi River. And you know how that beautiful skyline looks over on the Arkansas side. Imagine when that becomes a park, which will have one of the best views in America of any urban center. In summary, what we have here is somebody much larger than a commodities broker or a trader. We have someone who is indeed a visionary, who sees possibilities where others see problems, who sees a future where others see failure. This is a man who looked at a rusty old bridge, and as opposed to saying tear it down, he said, let's build it up and become one of America's really, really top tourist attractions. That trail is well underway. Here's the man who saw what some would call failing schools and saw the brightest of future. This is a man who is indeed a visionary. He is a salesman. Sometimes he oversells. I will never forget, and I have to just touch on this, our trip to Omaha. Charlie contacted me first and said, would you use your influence to get me in touch with the president of UP Railroad? I contacted a senator or two in Washington, couldn't get anything done. Finally, I said, Charlie, you got to take this over. Charlie made a couple of phone calls, and before you know it, I won't tell you about the trip up there. We were sitting in the president's office of UP in Omaha. They had planned for probably 2 or 3 people, but Charlie took 3 planes up. I don't know if he took any buses or not, and I could tell when the lady came out, Dow, and said, y'all come right on in, and she took us into a room about the size of a closet. Then she looked and she saw the other 40 people that Charlie had brought up, and so we had to wait for a while. We finally found a convention center there where we could meet in with Charlie's delegation. I was sitting next to the president. Charlie had all of his productions there, everything, and he wanted to do the whole thing. But I saw he had sold it already because the president, his knee just kept kicking and kicking and kicking, and I could see it there. I was trying to get a signal to Charlie to kind of cut it off, and apparently each signal I sent him, Charlie would rev it up that much more. After a couple of hours, we got out of there, but the bottom line, and of course that was just a warm-up act when he came and told me he was going to go to the levee board over there, and I've dealt with levee boards before. You think dealing with a railroad is rough, deal with a bunch of levee boards, and he wanted to go over and sell this, the trail along the levees to the levee board. And I said, this must be a brave man. We went in, I had to leave before Charlie finished, but he came a few minutes later and said the levee board bought it. Once I found out that the levee board bought it, I found out Charlie can sell anything. It is my distinct honor to present to you none other than my friend, your friend, a real visionary, a friend of the university, a friend of our city, Charles McVean.
I never know what to say about AC other than it's tough to follow him, but I will say this. No doubt he's a great mayor, but he's also one hell of a stand-up comedian, and I always enjoy it. Speaking of stand-up comedians, there's another one sitting here, my friend Rajiv. And I've kidded him a number of times. I said, Rajiv, your accent is so close to Henry Kissinger that I think we need to coach you just a little bit further and take you all the way. So, now speaking of Rajiv has played what I believe will prove to be a vitally important role in the creation of what I believe is one of the great social experiments in the modern history of this country. About 3 years ago, I was telling Rajiv about the theory of peer power. And he looked at me and he said those magic words, which I believe are maybe the greatest common sense test of truth that there is. He says, well, wait a minute. One, how simple is that? And two, why didn't we think of this before? And all we're doing, everybody knows that peer tutoring works. The problem is, on a voluntary basis, you can't achieve nearly the scale or the consistency that you need to make a real difference. So the answer to that is you create great jobs for these kids and pay them, if anything, a little bit more than they could make out in a fast food place. So our program had been going for 10 years, 8 or 9 years by the time I ran into Rajiv. And Rajiv said, why don't we get that involved in the Fogelman school? And that was the nexus between peer power and the University of Memphis. And we began with the first number of tutors in there. Then I made a deal with Dorsey Hobson. I said, Dorsey, we know what peer power can do after school. We know what it can do on a voluntary basis. And I said, and we know what we can do with high school tutors. I said, Dorsey, what if we change this from voluntary to mandatory? 3 independent force multipliers. Number 1, you go from voluntary to mandatory. Number 2, you go from after school to in school. And number 3, and very importantly, you go from high school tutors to collegiate tutors. Then what have you got? Well, if you look at any of our logos, it says very simply, peer power, a better way to learn. All I do is pay the bills. Bill Sainter's done a lot of the work on this. I'd like to give him a round of applause. Now, I could blow a lot of smoke around here, but I got 50 or 60 of our kids, our tutors right over here. What do you guys think we're doing over at East and Whitehaven? Stand up. I'd like to get all of our people to stand up. Now, These are all great kids, and in my heart of hearts, I believe that they're in the process of making history. But I can sit up here and blow smoke. I could have Bill Sainer come up here and help me blow smoke. But I want to introduce you. I know this is a little unconventional, Dean. It's not going to take long. Sorry. But I want to get a guy up here who can tell you for sure and certain what is happening. I'm going to get a guy up here who I believe, once again in my heart of hearts, is the finest major inner city high school principal in the United States of America, Dr. Vic Hunter, Whitehaven High School. Yeah. So then Vic, come on up here. So I make this deal with Dorsey, and I told Vic what I'm going to do. So I told Vic we're going to get Dorsey. I said we're going to get 1,000 man-hours of tutoring in here. That's typical. There's no way I could come up with 1,000 man-hours of tutoring. Then I sat down with my friend Dr. Tom Neenan. Where are you, Tom? Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences. And Tom was over here trying to sell me on getting peer power into his school. I said, look, I just made this promise to Dorsey. I said, I can't fund this deal right now, let alone I can't find these tutors. He said, well, Charlie, although you can't help me right this minute, I'm going to get you your tutors. So now we've got the College of Arts and Sciences involved, we've got Dean Grover involved, we've got Dorsey Hopkins involved, and we got the great Dr. David Rudd. Where is David? So really, at the end of the day, David and Dorsey and I are the partners. And we like to brag, but I want Vic to tell you in about 90 seconds what's coming down at Whitehaven High School. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I don't know if I can do it in 90 seconds because what Peer Power has done for the Whitehaven community is definitely longer than a 90-second spiel. But I'd like to share a few things, and I know I'm in a safe place, but when I saw my boss come in, Dr. Ramirez, I kind of got a little nervous because I'm not at school, right? But it's taken care of, Dr. Ramirez, I promise. No one is cutting up in the cafeteria. But about 9 or 10 years ago, 2 white gentlemen walked into the office at Whitehaven High School. And this is a true story. And one of my office workers ran back to the back and said, hey, Doc, there's 2 white guys in there asking for you. What did you do? I said, how you know they're not parents? Like I told you, Doc, they're not from the community. I said, how do you know? They're dressed real sharp and they're white guys. I said, well, let me find out. So now I didn't want the child to see I was a little nervous. So before I went out, I peeked around the corner. I said, I know I hadn't done anything. So I walked out, and Dr. Jerry Freeman, who's a former graduate, that also is the founder of Mecca Eye Center on Poplar, and Mr. Bill Sainer, who runs Peer Power, is good friends with Mr. Charlie McVean. They wanted to speak with me. And we went into a conference area and we began to talk. And the first thing out of their mouths were, we want to help Whitehaven. First thing I said was, okay, something going wrong. Okay. You got 2 guys that's not from the neighborhood asking to help Whitehaven. And I said, well, give me the blunt of it. Tell me give me the hook. They said, there's no hook. We represent Mr. Charles McVean, who has a peer power organization that's working over at East. He's interested in not having it only at East, but to grow that particular program and wanted to spread it to Whitehaven. And because Dr. Jerry Freeman is a former graduate of Whitehaven, that he has a personal interest in investing in the process. So I didn't know Dr. Jerry Freeman, and I'm a former graduate, so I found out that he did go to Whitehaven, so I had to check that out too, because he didn't look like none of the ones I graduated with. And he was a graduate of Whitehaven as well. Both of those gentlemen's mind and their hearts were sincere. They really wanted to make a difference in public education. That's something that's not always done, especially in public education, when public education seems to be the brunt of all the jokes that goes on and all of the mishaps that happen in communities. But those 2 gentlemen's hearts were right. Then they introduced me to Mr. Charlie McVean and Peer Power, where Peer Power galvanizes the interest and the expertise of peers to help children who may be struggling, and not just the ones that are struggling, but to help the ones who may want to enhance their skills and become great educators themselves, or become great attorneys or accountants or medical doctors. They wanted to galvanize that particular talent and help grow our children. At that time, I was a young principal, had been in the principal seat for about 2 years, didn't really know what was going on. But I knew I was in trouble because we were not making the mark with TCAP at that particular time in Gateway. So any help that I could get, I appreciated it. Long story short is that through Peer Power, now they've incorporated not only student teachers, but now they're incorporating the great tutors from the University of Memphis. Thanks, Dr. Rudd. Your children have made a tremendous difference at Whitehaven. Those Peer Power tutors now have changed usually a 1 to 35 teacher-student ratio in a classroom, now to 1 to 10. Now you have children getting individualized help, not just the children who are high flyers, not just the children who are meeting expectations, but even the children who are performing at below basic levels. Peer Power has now allowed those children to get individualized attention on a daily basis. There are forged relationships where a lot of children are going to be the first children to go to college, where these are children already in college. Now they have relationships with children that are already in college to talk about really what a college experience is all about. See, it's not all about what goes on in a textbook. It's about relationships. And what I found in this city, 3 things ties a community: athletics, music, and education. And we're only as good as our future leaders. Peer Power, thank you so much for caring enough about Whitehaven, and not just Whitehaven and the East communities. Mr. McVean, thank you so much for caring about Memphis. Dr. Rudd, thank you so much for allowing your students to come to Whitehaven and make a difference. Last year, our students, with the help of Peer Power, earned over $88 million in scholarships in one academic school year. That story won't be on the front page, but in the last 5 years, these children, through the help of Peer Power, have earned over $263 million, over $250 million in academic scholarships. All of those scholarships means opportunities and options. Now they have choices when they graduate, and life is about choices. And thank you so much for allowing us to be your choice in academics. I appreciate you so much from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you very much. Vic is a great speaker. He always knows how to focus the market's attention. In speaking to a business school, always throw something out there above 10 million and they will listen.